Yeah.
Welcome to the Carnivore Ninja podcast. Please welcome my guest, Josh Winkler. Josh is a certified health coach, and you have your own podcast, right, Josh?
I'm working on it. I'm in the process of launching one. Yes.
Okay, awesome. Can you tell me a little bit more about yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. So, well, let me kind of go back. I used to coach years ago, and I basically did macro coaching and training and things like that, and went through life, had a career where I was going up the ladder at work, and decided to step away from coaching and pursue that route. And later on in life, I kind of let myself let myself go, and hit the 40s and just had a dad bod and just feeling really bad, and knowing like the right things to do to get my health much better than what it was. So I decided to work with a vitality clinic. I actually found this clinic through my wife going through some health issues with an autoimmune condition called Hashimoto's. And so that sent me down this rabbit hole of like looking at longevity and looking at, optimizing myself and biohacking and all the cool stuff, and as I was doing that, it really prompted my passion for helping people, and I really missed it. So I decided to get certified in functional health because as we were going through this process with my wife, working with a doctor on Hashimoto's, they basically were like, okay, you have this, and once your thyroid quits working, we'll put you on medicine. And my wife has a coach that is a functional health coach, and he was like, no, we can put this in remission. So they did some things like some diet and lifestyle changes, and also incorporated some medications like low-dose naltrexone. It's used a lot for autoimmune conditions, and her Hashimoto's is now in remission.
Okay.
And I saw the power of functional health and diet. And also, side note, as I was pursuing all that and kind of working on optimizing my hormones and taking peptides and working out and starting to feel better, I found carnivore. So I
Of
was like,
course.
you know what? I really want to give this a try. So I started carnivore, and because like I had went like a year and a half on TRT and peptides, I was, feeling pretty good and seeing a lot of progress. But when I threw carnivore in the mix, like it just skyrocketed my results. Like the rest of the body fat that I had just fell off. I was able to run longer distances and things, because anytime I would try to do cardio before, even though I was doing better and working out, I would have a lot of joint pain, and I would have issues, for a few days. I'd be like, oh my gosh, my knee's killing me after running for like 50 yards. But once I started carnivore, I was able to run for like 2 miles without any joint pain. So a lot of that like aging related stuff just kind of disappeared when I started doing carnivore. So, I started now working with clients, and some of them do carnivore, some of them do not. But that's kind of my backstory and how I got to where I am today.
That's awesome. So you said your wife's Hashimoto's is in remission. What diet did you put her on? Did you put her also on the carnivore diet?
So it's interesting. For starters, her coach said, "Look, we got to come off of gluten, and we got to come off of dairy." And they incorporated some other medications and things like that. Some supplements, some medications like selenium was one, focusing on magnesium, and low-dose naltrexone, like I said. And her Hashimoto's, the numbers were at like in the 60s, and then they went up to like the 80s. And this is for those that aren't familiar, it's the TPO antibodies. Um, and a quick side note, she was having issues losing weight. She'd worked with this coach for years and kind of, was able to lose weight, but I put some back on, and all of a sudden could not lose weight. And he's the one that recommended a more thorough panel. And that's another thing that frustrates me with our system, is a lot of times the doctor will run just a few items on a blood panel, and you don't get a complete
Don't get the full
picture
picture,
of
yeah.
what's going on. So through those panels, we were able to see, oh my gosh, she's got an autoimmune condition. Because that could have been unnoticed because her thyroid numbers were still in range, but the TPO antibodies were there. But that can happen for years and you're symptomatic for years. And then all of a sudden the thyroid numbers go off and they'll check your TPO antibodies. It'll be in the thousands. So we caught it early. They did creep up a little bit more. They kept working it. And then they came down to, I think they were like 31 or 32, and under 35 is considered in remission.
That's great.
Um, then they went even a little lower. I think, I want to say it was like in the 20s. I'll have to check. But I do know this, though. She started carnivore, and after 8 weeks of carnivore, got it checked again. Her TPO antibodies were down to 9.
Wow, that's crazy. Huh.
Yeah. Yeah, it was awesome. So I can't say it wasn't necessarily carnivore that put it in remission, but we did see making some lifestyle changes and getting rid of some certain foods. She did see remission, but then
Yes.
adding carnivore, even more remission. So the numbers were continually dropping lower. Um, so definitely can be worked either way, but I do see a benefit of carnivore helping Hashimoto's for sure.
Do you see her coming off the medication at some point?
So it's funny. Low dose naltrexone is actually something that is being used in like the biohacking space. Not so. If you don't, do you know what low dose naltrexone is?
No.
Okay, so naltrexone is usually used at a higher dose to treat opioid addiction. So
Okay.
it's like 50 milligrams. And what it does is it blocks the opioid receptors in the brain. So when your body's producing endorphins, it doesn't see the endorphins that are produced and it produces more endorphins. And those endorphins will help lower inflammation in the body. So it's pushing your body into a lower inflammatory state. I'm actually taking it as well.
Yeah.
I have a condition called eosinophilic esophagitis,
Oh, okay.
and that is where your esophagus basically swells up. And they say, well, eliminate different foods. And I tried that. I went through 3 different scopes where they
Yes.
scoped and stretched the esophagus. It would every time I'd go back, and literally I would have food get stuck and it would come back up because I couldn't swallow the food.
Yeah.
I remember one time it was so bad that like I had a cold and I had congestion, and a Mucinex pill would not go down. I had to coat it with olive oil to get it to go down
That's
because it
horrible.
would just get stuck. And I could never go enjoy a steak dinner. Anytime I would eat, especially like steak and mashed potatoes, it would always, get stuck. So doing carnivore and taking low dose naltrexone, I can eat big amounts of steak, and I haven't had any issues in months. So I probably will come off of that and see how it affects me. I don't know, what my wife's plan is to do on that. I mean, she may want to try that, but some people are taking it just in a longevity space to keep down cellular inflammation in the body and keeping it in because it's such a small amount. So I don't know that it's doing harm. I don't know if we have long-term data on someone taking it for a long period of time, but it is one of those biohacking things. Another one I'm kind of similar is like taking a low dose like Cialis, Tadalafil, for blood regulation and kind of having the blood flowing and getting a pump. So the biohacking space is kind of interesting to me. It's like I don't know that obviously I'm not like a big like, oh, be on cholesterol medicine for the rest of your life or blood pressure medicine for the rest of your life. I think there's a lot of negative side effects to a lot of medications, but I do see some benefit from some low dose medications in the biohacking space. So everybody's got to decide like what's good for them in that space and what they're willing to try and stay on, or what they want to get off of.
Yeah, true. How did you even find carnivore? Like, I'm assuming your doctor did not tell you. So did you
No,
find
no,
it
no, no.
online somewhere?
So yeah, it was when I started looking up a lot of the autoimmune conditions, and I was YouTubing everything. And I did find, and I had listened to Dr. Ken Berry before. So I started uh, kind of listening to more of his videos, and I started listening to Dr. Kiltz and Carnivore Ray. Sean Baker, Anthony Chafee, Steak and Butter Gal. I started seeing more and more stuff, and I joined Dr. Barry and Nisha's community. And so I just found it online, and I guess that's the power of social media, because like you said, I mean, this is definitely not something my doctor would recommend. And honestly, the GI specialist that did all my scopes, she's a vegetarian.
Oh,
So
wow.
I'm kind of anxious to go back. I kind of want to go back and get another scope, and just to see, because every time I went in, it
Tell
was
her.
red, it
That's
was
what I did my
inflamed.
yeah.
And I would love for her to be like, "Oh my gosh, it's all better. What'd you do?" And I'm gonna be like, "Ate all
Tell
meat."
her. That's what I did with my pulmonologist. She came in, looked at the result. She's like, how did you get rid of your asthma? I've never seen this before. So I told her. And subsequently, she went carnivore. Her husband went carnivore. Her husband completely healed his asthma. And hers is to the point in remission that she only used a rescue inhaler the last 6 months. I just saw her in the beginning of October. And
Awesome.
she said, well, but if I would be a 100% carnivore, I'm sure it would be gone. She's like a dirty carnivore. So every once in a while,
Right.
she still has a piece of fruit or something. But yeah, tell them. You
Yeah.
might be able to change their point of view, or,
Yeah, absolutely. And you bring up a thought, all of the different conditions that we see, most of them I feel like are a metabolic
yeah,
reaction.
same.
It's systemic inflammation in the body. It's leaky gut, which causes reactions to things that we're eating, that we're breathing. And when you can seal up the gut, when you can get your body detoxed and everything clear, it's like the body just works so much more efficiently and optimally, that we don't deal with a lot of the chronic illnesses and sickness and disease that people deal with on the
Yes.
standard American diet.
Especially diabetes and autoimmune disorders. Pretty
Hmm.
sure they're all metabolic, or cancer.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
it's not hereditary. I heard that a lot. Of course, I'm not a doctor, but I'm convinced it's metabolic. So
Yeah. Well, the whole hereditary thing, I feel like a lot of that it's hereditary because we adopt the same lifestyles as we grew up
true.
in.
Same eating
So
style.
yep,
Yeah.
100%. And it always cracks me up when I've seen this, online a couple times, like the meme. But my daughter works at a vet clinic as well. So if a dog comes in that's sick or something's going wrong, the vet says, "Oh my gosh, this is what's going on. What are you
What are you
feeding it?"
feeding the dog? Yeah.
And then we go to the doctor, we're like, "Oh my gosh, this is wrong." They're like, "Oh, well, what's your family history and what medication are you on?" They don't ever talk about talk about food at all,
Yes.
and there are some. I will say, I've had a couple of good doctors throughout the years. One that we loved, but then she went and I think she went on like the mission field to work, healthcare overseas. But um, she would talk about things like even like with our daughters with congestion, she would say remove dairy because dairy was inflammatory. And a question that I have for you on this topic is, I've heard people say that they can have reactions to dairy, but if they do raw dairy, they don't have a reaction. It's not the same. So have you experimented with raw dairy at all?
Yes, I have. This is actually interesting. I had reactions to milk before I went carnivore. At least that's what I thought. I thought it was a reaction to milk before I went carnivore. Because every time I drank milk, I would have an upset stomach, or just plainly not feeling well, tired, or I felt something was off. It was not an outright allergy, but something wasn't quite right. So then I
Mhm.
went carnivore, and I'm thinking, man, you know, at first I felt energy, and then the energy was gone. So after about a month and a half. So I'm like, let's eliminate all dairy, which I did for the next 4.5, 5 months, to make 6 months
Yeah.
complete from the starting date. That was around June. When did we have World Championships last year? June. We had them in June. So I'm like, I don't want to reintroduce it before World Championships are over. Let me wait a little bit. World Championships passed, and then I put milk back into my diet, which I did. First thing I did was drink a glass of milk, plain, not raw, plain milk from the supermarket. And then I'm like,
Okay.
there is no reaction.
Hmm.
Like, I didn't eat any plants. I was lion diet, strict lion diet. I had no dairy, I had no plants, no nothing, just beef and water,
Right.
salt, beef, salt, and water. And then I had no reaction. So I'm like, this is so weird. If I eat plants, I have a reaction to milk. If I do not eat plants, I don't have a reaction to milk, whether it's raw or from the supermarket.
Okay.
And then I wanted to drink raw. And then a student of mine, she said, we have a farmer up there that does raw. Do you want me to bring you a bottle? I said, yes. She brought me a bottle down. I drank raw. And I'm just being honest here. I did not notice a difference in performance or how I felt. However, I think I felt a difference in taste. I think the raw milk tastes better.
Okay.
But that's just me. I don't.
Yeah. I've talked to a few people that when they do regular milk,
More
they break
creamy.
out.
It's more creamy.
The regular is? Or the
No,
raw?
the raw milk.
The raw. Yeah, when I've talked to a few people that when they do regular milk, they break out. They get acne and things like that and rashes. And then if they
Yes.
do raw milk, they have no reaction.
Yes,
So that
that's
was
not me.
very intriguing to me too.
I know I have a little divot right here, but what I did, this is completely nuts when I tell you, nobody will believe this. I have 11 jobs, and one of my jobs is a face painter at the Pennsylvania Renaissance Fair, which I used to act at like 12 years ago. And now I'm face painting there. This is my first season I face painted. And our entire face painter stand, we always have a crock pot with food in it. And this past weekend was the last weekend. We had chicken in it, and somebody put corn in and this and that. I'm like, yeah, I can eat the chicken. I can eat the. I scraped the corn off and just eat the chicken.
Okay.
I maybe had 4 corn pieces, and that's it. That's the breakout. It's the corn. And there were a few carrots in there, but I almost didn't recognize the corn pieces. There was a tiny sliver of orange somewhere. Like stuff you couldn't quite get off. So I ate a few corn pieces with a sliver of orange. I'm pretty sure that's the corn, that right here.
Huh. Wow.
Crazy, right? And I had a little bit of a pinching in my belly until about, this morning. And then it came out. Now it's gone.
Huh.
I just can't eat any plants. Super weird.
Yeah.
So
it's crazy.
So this is interesting. So did you become a carnivore before you became a health coach? You were already a health coach before you became carnivore, right?
So, well, kind of, yeah, years ago when I was doing it, but I was actually already I already started carnivore when I started working on my functional health certification. So at that point, this has already been, a year of kind of getting myself back in shape and working out and going down the longevity rabbit hole. And then once I started carnivore, I just really, started seeing crazy progress and um, dropped quite a bit of weight, and the fat just kind of melted off. If folks are interested in seeing that, they can go to my Instagram page. I got before and after, so you can kind of see how rapidly my transformation was. But I started carnivore, and then I'd say about a month or 2 into carnivore, I was like, you know what, I want to start coaching again. So I wanted to get my certification in functional health coaching, because to me, that's the only way to do it. If you're just doing macros and exercise, you're missing out on such a big component of it. With functional health coaching, you look at all the systems of the body, and you get a complete picture of what's going on with the adrenals and the thyroid and digestion and everything else. And if you're not fixing those things in a method that makes sense, you're gonna not see results. So let me give you an example. If you have someone that's insulin resistant, then they are not going to be able to process your carbohydrates, and you got issues. So what do you want to do to handle that? You want to pull back on calories, you want to pull back on carbohydrates, obviously. But if you have someone that has adrenal issues and thyroid issues, you want to feed up, because the body is like starving for the nutrients it needs. So if you don't tackle things in the right way, and you're like, someone's wanting to lose weight, you're like, okay, well, we'll just pull calories. But then the adrenals aren't pumping, and the thyroid isn't working, then the hormones aren't there to really give you the results that you need to see. So you have to work things, and sometimes it's, clients don't like hearing it, but it's like you have to go through a healing phase first to get your body healthy. And then once you do that, it makes the losing the weight and some of those other things a lot easier. Um, if you try to strip the weight off while you're not healed, the body's going, no, no, I need to keep a hold of all this fat, because we're in a crisis. And stress management is a huge, huge component of health. And that's one of the things that I've learned through my training and working with clients is how big of a deal stress and overtraining can be. You kind of think about it like this: if years and years and years ago, we were going to war, and we were trying to get food, and if food was scarce, the body will say, okay, let me hold on to the food. Well, how does it do that? Through your stress. Your stress, times of stress is what causes the body to hold on to weight. So, but the body now doesn't know the difference between lack of food and going to war and those things, and the stress sitting in traffic, and the stress of your job, and the stress of your relationships, and the stress of running the kids around. So our body's like, okay, let's hold on to all this fat. Because we don't know what's going to happen. So learning how to let go of stress, pulling back and resting, and eating the proper things. I mean, it makes such a difference in how your body processes things, that you see much easier results. And the thing I love about carnivore is a lot of the clients that I have that want to do carnivore, I always get this reaction like, well, I started it, and it was going throughout this first week, and I thought I was going to have all these cravings for sugar, but I didn't. I thought I was going to have all these
Yeah,
cravings for carbs, and I was going to feel so tired, and I was tired for the first day or two, but then I started feeling more mental clarity, and I wasn't as hungry as much. And I really think those spikes in blood sugar going up and down wreak so much havoc on our emotional state,
true.
our cravings. I mean, being hangry is a thing.
Oh yes, it
But
is a thing. Absolutely.
I feel like that is more so affects more people that do a lot of the carbohydrates, because it's like the body's craving those sugars so they can spike up that blood sugar, and then insulin's released, and then it drops and it tanks, and then you're hangry.
Yes, and
But on
most
a
people don't even
carnivore,
realize that. Yeah.
yeah, and on carnivore, it's mitigated so much, and it's not really as much of an issue. So it's very interesting seeing, the different outcomes with my clients, not just kind of because, obviously when you experience it, it's like, oh, okay, well, this is how I felt, but you don't. Everybody's different, so you don't know 100% how everybody's going to respond. But I've had great outcomes so far.
Yes, and it's funny that you say that with stress reduction, because at least I have found that eating completely carnivore without a single plant, uh, I'm able to tolerate stress a lot better
Yeah,
than on the regular diet. Like I'm always calm like the sea. And I've had this
yeah,
hangry thing too. One of my 11 jobs is being a school bus driver. And in the past, depending on what the kids did, I flipped out more than once. And now I'm nice and quiet. I call the kid up and we're actually having a casual conversation. And at this point, I'm so calm. I can pull the bus over with four-way flushes on with 50 other kids in the back and have a calm conversation with the other kid without rushing my bus. When I know I got to get somewhere at some point, I got to get to a different stop, right?
right.
Uh, but it's not concerning me anymore like it used to be. And I actually found out the reason I was always stressing on the bus is because I was hangry.
Mhm.
Yes,
My teenage daughters, actually, now they haven't stayed quite 100% on, but they started carnivore with me, and within 3 weeks, 2 weeks, they were completely different people with each other.
that's
They used to
crazy.
snip at each other and fight, and dig at each other. And one day I got up, and they both woke up late, and they're running late, and the one's like, "Oh, do you want me to make you some eggs?" And the other one's like, "Oh, hey, I got this for you." And I'm like,
Eggs and bacon.
"Who are you? What happened to my daughters?"
I've had that with
And
my
then
kid. Who are you?
yeah, yeah. And then my youngest had, terrible, terrible periods. And having to have a heating pad and, all hurting for 2 days, 3 days, laying in the bed. And after 2 months of strict carnivore, she actually had a pain-free period, the first ever in her life.
That's amazing.
And so I think it was last month. She's like, "Oh my gosh, I'm hurting." I'm like, "Oh, okay." Well, I'm like, "Well, what's going on?" She's like, "It's because I haven't been doing carnivore. I need to get back. I need to get back on carnivore."
It's
And,
good
and I
that
get
she
it.
sees that. It's good that she sees
Yeah,
that though. A lot of kids
yeah,
would be ignorant about that.
right, right. And I think some of it is as a teenager, you're not, because I haven't been 100% the whole time. I went 90 days, very strict. And there's times I've experimented with different things. We'll go out and I'll have like, there's times I went to dinner and I've had like potatoes, mashed potatoes with a steak. Um, but like my daughter, she'll be like, "Oh, I'm doing carnivore," and then like they'll have something at work and she'll eat that, and it's like, "Oh, well, they ordered Chick-fil-A and she's eating chicken sandwiches and French fries and then ice cream for dessert, or, a
Yeah.
cookie." And it's like she's going all the way off. And I think if she could better balance it too, where she's eating, and a lot of people have this mindset. It's like, I'm either doing this or I'm not.
Yes.
And it's like you gotta have a mindset of, hey, I'm gonna do this. It works. Do it 95% of the time, but give yourself grace if you have a meal that's off plan. Do it, don't go crazy, and then see how it affects you, because
Yeah.
you may not be able to indulge in 3 or 4 slices of pizza, every month. That may really throw you off, but you might be able to do, like some people are very sensitive to gluten, so any breads they would want to stay away from. But they may be able to do ice cream and not have as much of a reaction,
Yes.
So it's like learning your body and knowing like what's really going to throw you off, and then is it worth it? Is it worth eating that one
Exactly.
thing that's going to make you feel miserable for a week when, okay, say you didn't cheat on pizza, but you went and had 2 scoops of ice cream, but then it's maybe the next day you were a little sluggish, but that was it. And then you were back to normal. Well, then that would probably be something that, you could do every now and again, and, or find an alternative way of doing it. Like I make my own ice cream using heavy cream and egg yolks, and that kind of knocks out that sweet tooth. So it's really about finding a lifestyle that works for you and
Yes.
that you thrive in and you feel great in. And everybody, unfortunately, is a little different. And I think
True.
that's what's great about carnivore is you get a baseline and then you can start experimenting and see what you thrive on.
Yes. And I feel sometimes things can change. Like you
Yeah,
might be reacting to an apple, but then 9 months later, you're not going to react the same way to the apple you ate. For
yeah.
example, I had a little bit of an experiment about 9 months into the carnivore diet. I went to work. That time it was Hershey Park bus driving. I'm going through all my jobs as we go through the interview, uh, which is about 45 minutes from where I live. So I forgot my cooler at home. So a coworker gave me gave me an apple and some of his nuts. He had like a mixed nut mix. And that made me so sick to the point where I couldn't even do my school bus job the next day. I did
Wow.
it, but I was schlepping myself through the entire school bus run. And I had my son with me at the time. He's here. I'm actually surprised I haven't heard him yet. He's behind me in the room. And he's like, "Okay, mom, I've had enough. I'm going to drive you to the emergency room now because this is not working." Like I was hanging off the driver's
Wow.
seat. It's really bad. Like my liver felt swollen and actually poking against my rib. I had heart racing. It was crazy. Uh,
Wow.
Now, in this weekend, when I ate the corn, I mean, it was 4 pieces. I felt a little bit of pinching and it wasn't bad. I mean, maybe I should repeat the apple experiment, but on a day that I'm not working the next day or something. I don't know. See how that goes.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's interesting, but I feel like, so when it comes to like the gut, leaky gut, for those of your listeners that don't know, you have these tight junctions in your gut, and then basically what happens is, if you have leaky gut, those kind of open up and food particles get through. And
Yes.
as those food particles get through, they create a reaction in the body. So one of the things you can do to help heal the gut is taking like 20 grams of glutamine a day, and that will help seal up the gut. There's other supplements and things you can do, but also, if your liver needs detoxing, there's things you can do to detox the liver. I'm a big fan of using some of the functional health like supplements and things like that because I think carnivore will fix a lot of the things. It just may take longer. So I
Yeah.
think that's one of the reasons that I saw such quick results is I was already working on a lot of things in my from a health perspective through supplements and things like that, that it was already operating and flushed out. So once I started carnivore, it's just like this immediate transformation. But everybody, like you said, is different, and their body may be letting go of that reaction and those healing of like the gut lining and maybe folks can have like fatty liver and they can have issues with different organs, but as you get the organs flushed out and healed, then like you said, then you can eat something and not have a response at all. It doesn't mean it's forever, but you got to kind of work through what the trigger is it actually a I've heard the terms of like food sensitivity, food allergy, food intolerance. Those are different things, and people will say like, "Oh, I'm allergic to that because I ate it and I didn't feel good." And it's like, okay, but is
Yeah,
that something you
something's
developed
off.
later
Yeah.
in life? You sure it's an allergy or is it a sensitivity or is it an intolerance? And then all of those symptoms can be worked based on the health of the different organs and things.
So yeah. Well, I had a lot of allergies myself, but against pretty sure it was an allergy. Um, what do you call it? Pet hair, cat hair, dog hair, horse hair, guinea pig,
Oh,
anything that had
yeah.
hair, really. Pollen was not right away. The hair allergy started when I was 13 with cats. And
Okay.
then as an adult, I was like 43, maybe not too long ago, I had the pollen allergy come into the mix. And month after month on carnivore, all my allergies were just gone. And
That's
I dug
awesome.
a little bit deeper into that and found out that inflammation in the body can wreck your immune system to the point that you
Yeah.
react allergic to everything.
Right.
So now that all my
And
allergies are gone, and I couldn't have gluten, so when you mentioned gluten, I raised my hand.
yeah,
I would like to make a gluten experiment where I'm eating a tiny sliver of pizza or bread or whatever that actually does have gluten in it and see if that is gone also. My
yeah,
doctor actually did diagnose me with celiac disease many, many years ago. It's like, what is it now, 20 years? And back
right,
then, the testing wasn't as rigorous as it is now. So we only did the blood test and a food diary. I was never scoped. So
right.
today I'm
Gotcha.
like, maybe I didn't have celiac disease. Maybe it was
Could
just an
be.
intolerance or an allergy. I
Could
mean,
be.
the blood test was elevated, but I'm actually curious to find out.
Yeah, and part of the issue with the gluten is our wheat in the States is a hybridized wheat.
Yes.
So the way the production is done, like I hear it all the time that people will go to like Europe and eat bread over there and they're like, "Oh, I feel fine." Then they come back to the United States and they eat bread and it's like,
I'm
"Oh
hearing
my
that
gosh, I'm
too.
bloated." And it's like they have this bad reaction and it's because of the things that are in our foods. Seed
Yes,
oils is another big one. It's like if you can avoid seed oils and if you can avoid, for some gluten, I think those two things are a huge trigger for a lot of people.
definitely.
Um,
Yes. Grains,
it's crazy.
grains, and I think grains are the most toxic things together with seed oils. So,
Right.
but I am originally from Germany. So my gluten allergy or celiac disease, whatever you want to call it, started over there. And then
Huh. Okay.
nobody ever found out over there because it would not present like the typical gluten thing. Like
Right.
it was mostly not in the stomach. I had migraines. I had just overall bad performance when I did sport, like the asthma and
Right.
everything. And then I went gluten free. The migraines disappeared. Uh, Ironically enough, my mood swings also disappeared. But what I thought was disappearing at the time did, yes, but not to the degree when I started carnivore,
Mhm.
they really disappeared. Do you know what I mean? It's almost like
Yeah.
masking it a little bit. Like, yes, it disappeared, but not completely.
Yeah.
So super weird. Uh,
Yeah.
that's so super weird. I don't even know how to explain it. It's weird.
Yeah.
Um, Here's another question. I find that interesting always if somebody goes into the health field and they are carnivore, or they were in the health field and then they went carnivore. Uh, so you were carnivore and then you learned about health coaching. I'm sure you had a lot of conflict, right, with the stuff you learned, and
Yeah, so
how did you
it's kind
manage
of
that?
funny. My mentor in the course that I learned a lot of things like we do a flush, and in the flush, we incorporate um, a lot of fruits and veggies. He's pretty big on removing like the gluten and some of the grains and the seed oils and all that stuff. So that's not really, and dairy too. It's not really much conflict there. But he's more savvy than a lot of the mainstream health recommendations. But it's also interesting that again, me and my wife both did carnivore. Her coach is my mentor, and he was like, well, I don't know about carnivore, especially long term. He agrees it's great for inflammation,
What does he say
but
now then?
thinks so he agrees it's great for inflammation and good to add in, maybe a couple times a year is what he said. And then my wife did it and then ran blood work. And a lot of her hormones that were really low went way up.
Yes,
So now, he's like, well, maybe there's some validity to this to do it, maybe even a little more often. He's still not like a hardcore, like, oh, let's, do carnivore all the time. Um, Part of the reason that he doesn't like that is because of the fiber and not getting the they're big on some of the coaches that I follow, they're big on biodiversity in the gut. So eating lots of different foods so you have a different microbiome. However, I just saw a study that was done the other day and I sent it to him. And he's interested, that there was someone that did carnivore and they had greater microbiome diversity after doing carnivore.
that's
There was
interesting.
also a study, if you know, I don't know if you know of Banazati.
I've heard of him. Yeah,
He's
I actually
the
just
keto,
followed him in Instagram, so I'm just kind
yeah,
of looking into
keto
him.
keto camp.
Yeah.
He did a 3 month thing where he did carnivore and he
Yes.
did blood work and a GI map before and after.
Yes.
And the GI map people, they did the test and said, oh, well, you should not do keto and you should not eat as much meat, eat more fruits and veggies. And
Yes.
he said, okay, well, here's my starting point, but now I'm going to do 3 months of carnivore and then retest. He did that. At the end of the 3 months, he had more biodiversity in the
Yes.
microbiome and his numbers all looked better. And they were like, oh, this is interesting. We don't know why this happened the way it did.
I
Now
find that funny. Yeah.
he
So
also had another
keep going.
doctor. He had another doctor, Dr. Pompa,
Yeah.
review his results, and he's got some good stuff out there too. And Dr. Pompa said, "Okay, well, you changed your diet, so your microbiome diversity changed. But I would say that if you did this another 3 months, you'd probably um, it would get worse." So he didn't do that. I kind of wish he would have went another 3 months and then tested again because I would be very curious. So I'm working with a company that's just getting started in the States. And I'm doing it's called a gut ID. And it's a whole microbiome mapping of all of the bacteria in my gut. So I'm getting that done now. I sent off the stool sample and they'll come back with an analysis of how healthy my microbiome is. And I want to see after, several months, redo that and see where I'm at. But, I feel like there's not enough testing. And I know some people are like, don't worry about testing. I like data. So I want to see like, what's the microbiome? I want to see, what are my health markers on my labs, my blood work, what does that look like? And I will say the caveat is the hard part is a lot of our markers are defined by standard ranges that are based on an unhealthy population.
True. I heard that too. I heard that before from Dr.
Yeah.
Chafer.
So what does that mean? Well, okay, if your cholesterol is, you got a very unhealthy population and the standard is up to 200 for your total, but then you get a carnivore in there. I've heard of people being in the 500s in their total cholesterol, and then they
Yeah.
went and got the plaque test to see if there was any plaque in the arteries. None. 2 years later, still
Amazing.
500
Yeah.
total
True.
cholesterol, and still no plaque. So it's like, okay, well, what is a healthy range of cholesterol and what's really important in that? And in the research that I've seen, it's more so the triglyceride to HDL ratio that's important, not your total cholesterol and not your LDL. So it's like, I think labs and tests are really good, especially as we get better in science to understand how these things are working. But you also have to know that some of them may be a little skewed because the ranges are off from the healthy population. So you can't be scared off by some of our normal ranges. You have to really work with someone that knows how to read the labs and get a full picture, which is, one of the things I do with my clients.
Yeah, that's so interesting. Um, how do you see yourself going with the carnivore diet? Do you want to be on it for life, or do you know already?
I'll probably be on some version of it. I will say that I feel my best so far on carnivore. One of the things I want to do is I want to experiment with adding in some carbohydrates around my workout time. I was messaging with Dr. Chafee on this a while ago, and he basically said, "Look, if you have a carbohydrate, if you have a fruit or whatever, it turns off genes of converting your fat for fuel, and you don't feel as good." And so I don't know until I try. I did try a couple weeks ago experimenting with adding in some fruits and more dairy, and I didn't feel the best. And I don't know. I wish I would have done one at a time because I don't know if it was the dairy or if it
Or
was
the
the
fruits?
fruits.
Yeah.
Right. But I also am trying to add some muscle mass. So um, part of what I'm going to try at some point is getting anywhere from like 50 to 100 grams, maybe 150 of carbohydrates pre-workout through like fruit and honey. I might even experiment with like white rice. But I don't want to go, I don't think I'll go back to like, oh, every week I'm eating, standard American diet meals. Even I will say going off plan, there's been times like BW3s, they have potato wedges that are cooked in beef tallow versus like seed oils. So, we went out with friends one time and I was like, oh, I'm gonna get some of those potato wedges. I had like 8 wedges and they were like not, and when you're on the standard American diet and you haven't had carbs in like 2 days or 6 hours and you get them, they are so good. Like
Yeah,
you are
really.
like, oh my gosh, this is so delicious. But I had those wedges and I was like, yeah, they were good, but it wasn't like it was this overwhelming, like I thought it was going to be, like satisfaction of I finally got potatoes again. So, having tried some things and seen how they don't really give this gratification like they used to, I don't know that I'll ever go back to that type of eating. And I think more so what I'm trying to do is eat for performance and see, how my body will grow the way I want it to and stay lean the way I want it to, and use the food as a fuel source and as a way to give me the performance, the growth, the strength that I need. But I also don't want to be so stressed out that like if I go somewhere, because you can do more damage stressing about every little minute thing, where if you go to a restaurant you're freaking out like, oh my gosh, well, are they cooking this, my steak on a grill that had seed oil on it, am I gonna die? You can't like freak out either. So I try to have a balance of, you know, I do a lot of, since doing carnivore, I do a lot of my stuff at home. But if I'm out, I'm in a pinch, I'll go through McDonald's, I'll go through Wendy's, and I'll order off the a la carte menu. And if folks don't know that, you can ask for hamburger patties off the a la carte menu. You can get like, I think at Wendy's, it's like 3 big hamburger patties and a side of bacon for like 12 or 13 bucks.
Yeah.
And it's like 3/4 of a pound of beef and a few pieces of bacon. Throw some salt on it, and you've got yourself a carnivore meal. Now, is
Yes.
there something in that beef that's maybe not as high quality as like what I make at home? Maybe, but I'm not going to stress about it,
I've done that
It-
too. Yeah.
yeah,
Like on
it's
a
just
10,
it's
14
finding
hour
a
drive.
balanced
Yeah.
approach.
I mean, on a 10, 14 hour drive when there's nothing else available, it's not like
Yeah.
drive into the park, whipping out your stove, you know. I gotta get it somewhere. Though because of that, I actually delved into raw meat eating as of recently, like the last 2 months
Ooh,
I've tried raw, and
I don't know that I can do that.
I'm good.
I
But I
don't
have
know. I
done
don't
the
know if I can do
Wendy's
it.
McDonald's approach too, with burgers
Yeah.
or like without the bun, you know,
Yeah.
just a little bit
Yeah.
sauce.
So, but here's the tip. And I don't know if you ordered it this way. If you tell them a la carte menu,
Yeah,
it's way cheaper than ordering it
it's
and
way
saying no
cheaper. Yeah,
bun.
yeah,
Yeah, like
absolutely.
tons. Like I think the first time we went to Wendy's and we got like three baconators and no
And they
bun,
were
and
so
it was
good
like 60
previously.
bucks.
Yes.
It's like, oh,
So, uh, yeah, and they actually tried that with me once, even though I did say a la carte. And then I'm like,
yeah,
no, it shouldn't be like that a la carte. There should be some money taken off. And I
right,
can't
right.
remember where was that. Oh, Red Robin's. They tried to charge me the full
Yeah.
price, even though I ordered a la carte. And then she double checked. She says, "Yep, that's actually possible here." I'm like, okay. So
So they did do it a la carte or they didn't?
yes, they did.
Oh, okay,
They
cool.
did.
Yeah, because so some of the places that I've gone to, they don't do a la carte menu, like they don't have it in their register, but what they
Yeah.
do have is like an add patty button.
Yeah.
So if you get like one burger and it's like $12, but then you can add patty
You can add
like two
patties.
or
Yeah.
three times, and then you can get like four patties and it's only like two
15
dollars a
bucks or
patty.
something. Yeah.
Yeah, instead of paying like, $12 four times for four patties, you're
Four
paying like
patties. Yeah.
$12 plus two or three, plus two or three, plus two or three. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's funny how you got to make it work. You got to do a whole interrogation when you go
Yes.
out.
True. That is so true. So, what would you like to tell my listeners if they have some health issue and would like to try carnivore but are on the fence? Because you hear from all of these people, oh, it causes heart disease, it causes clogged arteries. I don't know if I should do this, I might die.
Yeah.
What would
I
you
don't,
tell them?
so I will say that carnivore is not something that I feel like would cause heart disease or that's gonna give give a person health problems. Now, what I also will say is there are times where someone has health issues that need to be addressed, and sometimes taking certain supplements or doing things will help bring faster results than just doing like carnivore alone. I don't think carnivore is something that's going to really like hurt somebody, but if someone's dealing with blood sugar issues and they're on insulin and they cut out all the carbohydrates, and they still take the amount of insulin that they take, then they're going to have a problem. So you kind of have to know your body and know what you're dealing with and address the things that are failing through all the means possible to get the quickest results. But carnivore is something that I, I guess a warning too is that if you pull out all the fruit and veggies and different things, and if you're used to a lot of high oxalate foods, you can get something called oxalate dumping.
Yes.
And if you aren't aware, you might kind of freak out because like I woke up, several times in my first 2 weeks, and I'm like, why is my wrist hurting right here? And oh, why is this weird bone hurting? I don't know what that is. And it was because my body wasn't getting oxalates, so it was clearing out the oxalates, and they're kind of like little razors causing issues in your body. Um, so sometimes it's better to take a slow approach. If someone's got a lot of health issues, they may not want to pull everything all at once. They may want to go keto first. Still get some veggies, still get some low carb fruits. Do that for a couple weeks, then pull out something else, then pull out something else. Um, and also, there are some people that going straight carnivore is really hard for them, and I'd rather you work up to it than to try it cold turkey and then do it for 2 days and then pull the plug and say, "Oh, this is stupid. I can't do it." And that's where a coach comes in. So a coach or a mentor, if someone isn't sure how to do what they're wanting to do, find someone that is there that can help walk them through the process. Ask very specific questions to their situation, because a lot of information out there is generalized and it's not always easy to find the answer for your specific situation because everybody's got their own health issues, their own challenges, their own way of doing things. And if I can emphasize anything, it's find a lifestyle that you can stick with that doesn't feel like a diet or a temporary change, but this is the way I'm going to eat and enjoy life, and it's going to give me the vibrance and the vitality that I need to thrive.
Yes. Would you say it's better to go to a health coach? Because if some people tell me, like, if I tell them, why don't you try carnivore? Like, a month won't kill you. They're like, oh, I want to talk to my doctor first. And I already know in the back of my mind, if they talk to their doctor, they're not going to do it. So
Yeah,
would it be better to go to a health coach right off the bat? Or because I've
right.
seen a little bit of an awakening the last few months where a lot of health coaches have said, oh, carnivore, I've tried it and I found it's actually really beneficial.
Yeah.
And doctors don't usually do that.
Right. Right. Yeah. And my doctor, kind of the same thing. She's asking questions too. And she's like also very scientific. So if you can prove, with studies or with labs, and then it's like, oh, okay, well, this is interesting. Let's take a look at it. But yeah, health coach is, I mean, we all need coaches in our life, coaches and mentors. I have coaches and mentors for different areas of my life, and everyone should, in my opinion, because when you're in a situation, you can't really objectively look at yourself. You're seeing just and you're kind of sympathetic to yourself.
Yes, true.
I'm going through so much. I deserve this cookie. And then, a health coach can go, yeah, well, do you? Are you like going through World War II and like on the battlefield and there's nothing else to eat but a cookie? Okay, well, it's not that bad, but I deserve it. Well, let's swap that out for something else that you can, deserve. Maybe
Watch a
you
movie.
do,
That's your
yeah,
reward.
or maybe you do again, thinking about kind of progressing into things. Maybe you cut out the cookies and stuff with seed oils, but maybe you do have like a strawberry with some sugar-free Cool Whip. I make homemade Cool Whip, and some, there was one of the things that I've been able to do, or a carnivore ice cream, or things that. And I use Splenda in my carnivore ice cream. Is artificial sweetener the best thing? Jury's not out yet. I think there's some pros and some cons. But I'd rather do that than to go eat a bunch of sugar. You know what I mean? So it's like sometimes we get so dogmatic about like, oh, you just got to do, you can't have anything, just beef and water. And, it's like, could that work 100%? But sometimes folks need like those little tools and tips to get around some of those humps, get all the blood sugar normalized, and then the cravings are
Yeah.
gone. And then you aren't hangry, and then you're not working against yourself. You're setting yourself up for success.
Yes, absolutely. Where can people find you?
So joshwinkler.tv is my website, and then all my social media handles are Josh Winkler TV. So I'm on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter. I have a Facebook page. So yeah, and then hopefully we'll be launching my podcast soon, and I'm going to try to get that out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and my YouTube channel as well.
Okay. You're health coaching out of Florida, right?
Yeah,
Florida?
I do everything virtually though.
Okay. So it could
So
be somebody from overseas if they were interested.
yeah, I do have clients internationally.
That's awesome.
It's the power of social media. It's so cool. It's like you talk to someone, and I was just talking to someone in London the other day, and I have a client in Turkey, and it's
That's
like
awesome.
it's so neat, being able to. I mean, power of social media. Let's use it for something, a force of good.
Yes. Would you like to add something that we forgot, maybe? Would you like to add
Um,
something?
I don't think so. I mean, I would just encourage folks to take control of their health journey. Um, don't don't leave it to, oh, genetics, or oh, I'm cursed with this, and I can't get over it. You absolutely can turn your life around. I mean, I did it in my 40s, and I'm thriving, feeling better than I have in my 30s and my 20s. And we really can. And with the science that's out there today, you can take charge of your health and really get your life back. And if you're not going
Absolutely.
to do it for like just the physical appearance, the vitality, the being able to, like, one day I'm gonna have grandkids. I want to be able to play with them, and not be like, oh my gosh, I got to sit down. I can't go to the park, or you know what I mean? Like, take charge of your health, and do what you need to do to be healthy, to thrive in life, and to get your vitality back.
Awesome. Yes, thank you so much for joining me. I think
Absolutely.
it was
Thanks for
very
having me.
interesting. Yeah, it was very interesting. And I hope we can stay in contact somehow, at least on
Yes,
Instagram,
absolutely.
if not personally.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I love connecting. I love connecting with people online and Instagram. I post a lot of stuff, and I'll post a workout video and say, "Hey, what are you guys training today?" And some people don't respond, but the people that do, I love it. Like I love seeing what people are doing in their lives, and I love answering questions. That's one of the things I want to start doing more of is like Instagram lives where I can go live and ask questions. So it's been great connecting with you. I know we chatted quite a bit the other day and getting to know kind of your background and things you're going through. So definitely we'll keep in touch. And for any of the
Yes,
listeners that want to reach out, shoot me a DM, introduce yourself, tell me you heard me on this podcast. And if you have a question, shoot it away.
awesome. Thank you so much. Enjoy
Absolutely.
the rest of your day, and maybe we have a second interview sometimes as a follow-up. See how things are
Sure.
going.
Sure. Would be
So
glad to.
awesome.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Thank you, you too.
All right.